very urgent. Your soulmate has finally made a life-changing decision. And it's all about you. You were not meant to find these words by accident. Something invisible has been trying to reach you for longer than you realize, quietly weaving together moments that once felt meaningless. The strange feeling in your chest, the dreams that seemed too vivid to ignore, the unexpected memories that appeared out of nowhere, they were never random. They were signals. They were whispers from a story still unfolding. And right now, at this very moment, someone whose soul has remained deeply connected to yours has reached a decision that changes everything. The question is not whether this decision was made. The question is why it happened now, and what is about to happen next. For so long, you believed silence meant the story had ended. You convinced yourself that distance had spoken louder than love, that unanswered questions would remain unanswered forever. There were nights when you stared into the darkness, asking yourself whether the connection had only existed inside your own heart. You tried to move forward. You told yourself to stop looking back. Yet no matter how hard you tried, something inside you refused to let go. It was never obsession. It was never wishful thinking. It was something much deeper, something your soul recognized long before your mind could explain it. And that invisible bond has been growing stronger in complete silence. While you were trying to understand your own emotions, another journey was unfolding where you could not see it. The person connected to your destiny was walking through storms they never spoke about. Every choice they made without you taught them something they could not have learned any other way. Every path they followed eventually led them back to the same question. No matter how many distractions surrounded them, no matter how much they tried to convince themselves they had moved on, one truth continued waiting for them at the end of every road. That truth had your name written across it, but accepting it would require letting go of everything they once believed. You may wonder why this realization took so long. The answer is simple, yet painful. Fear has a way of disguising itself as logic. It tells people they are protecting themselves when they are actually protecting their loneliness. It whispers that avoiding vulnerability is the safest choice. For a while, they believed those whispers. They built walls instead of bridges. They chose distance over honesty because they thought distance would silence their heart. Instead, every mile only made your absence louder. Every quiet morning reminded them of conversations they never finished. Every peaceful sunset carried a strange emptiness they could not explain, until one unexpected moment changed everything. It happened in the most ordinary way imaginable. There were no dramatic speeches. No perfect timing. No grand miracle that stopped the world. It was a single moment so small that anyone else would have overlooked it. A familiar song drifted through the air. A stranger smiled in a way that reminded them of your kindness. A scent from the past unlocked memories they believed were gone forever. Suddenly, every emotion they had buried rushed back at once. They realized they had spent more energy running from love than they ever would have spent embracing it. And from that moment forward, they could no longer pretend they were walking in the right direction, but another discovery was waiting just beyond that realization. At nearly the same time, something inside you also began to change. You may not have noticed it immediately because real transformation rarely announces itself. It grows quietly beneath the surface, like roots preparing a tree for a season it cannot yet see. You became stronger without realizing it. You stopped chasing answers that refused to come. You began choosing peace over panic. Instead of begging for certainty, you slowly learned to trust yourself again. Every disappointment became a lesson. Every tear became part of your healing. And with every step toward your own light, your energy began reaching farther than you ever imagined, reaching even the heart that had once turned away. The universe has mysterious ways of reconnecting what still belongs together. It rarely forces people into each other's lives. Instead, it changes them until they are finally capable of recognizing what has always been true. That is exactly what has been happening behind the scenes. The person tied to your destiny has not simply remembered you. They have started seeing you through completely different eyes. They no longer remember only the moments they misunderstood. They remember your patience, your compassion, your strength during difficult seasons. They remember the version of you they once took for granted. And every memory has become another piece of a truth they can no longer deny. Though admitting that truth comes with a cost they never expected, there is something they have never admitted to anyone. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even to themselves until recently. There were countless moments when they almost reached out. Their hand hovered over their phone. They imagined what they would say. They rehearsed conversations that never happened. Then fear interrupted once again. They worried they had waited too long. They wondered if forgiveness was even possible. They questioned whether your heart had already closed its doors forever. Those questions became chains that held them still, until one extraordinary realization shattered every excuse they had been hiding behind. They finally understood that regret grows heavier than rejection. They realized they would rather risk hearing no than spend years wondering, what if? That single shift changed everything inside them. Suddenly, every reason they had used to stay away seemed insignificant. Pride lost its power. Fear lost its voice. The future became more important than the past. They stopped asking whether reaching out would guarantee happiness. Instead, they began asking whether staying silent guaranteed heartbreak. The answer was impossible to ignore, and it pushed them toward a decision that cannot be undone. Meanwhile, signs have continued appearing around you in ways that seem impossible to explain. Certain numbers keep repeating. Familiar places call your attention. You think about them moments before hearing their name. Memories appear without warning. Your intuition grows louder with every passing day. These experiences are not asking you to predict the future. They are asking you to pay attention to the present. Something is moving beneath the surface of your life, preparing you for a moment that will feel strangely familiar, as though your heart has been waiting for it all along, yet the biggest surprise has not arrived. Sometimes destiny delays a reunion because two hearts must first become whole on their own. Love built from fear cannot survive. Love built from healing has roots that reach much deeper. Looking back now, you can see how much both of you needed the time apart. The lessons were painful, but they were necessary. Without them, the connection would have repeated the same mistakes. Without them, old wounds would have spoken louder than new beginnings. You were not meant to find these words by accident. Something has been moving beneath the surface of your life for longer than you realize, quietly rearranging moments that once seemed ordinary. The silence you've been living through has not been empty. It has been filled with invisible choices, hidden emotions, and a decision so powerful that it has already begun changing your future before you even know its name. Right now, someone whose soul has always been connected to yours has reached a point where turning back is no longer possible, and what happens next could change everything you thought you understood. For so long, you believed the distance between you was the final answer. Every unanswered message, every missed opportunity, every strange coincidence convinced you that life had already written the ending. You tried to accept it. You told yourself that some people simply pass through your life to teach a lesson before disappearing forever. But deep inside, there was always one small part of your heart that refused to believe the story was over. That quiet feeling never stopped whispering because it already knew something your mind had not discovered yet, and now that hidden truth is beginning to rise. While you were busy healing wounds no one could see, your soulmate was walking through a different kind of storm. They smiled when they had to. They kept moving when everyone expected them to. They convinced themselves they had made the right choice by stepping away, by staying silent, by pretending their heart had become stronger than their emotions. But every day they ignored their feelings, those feelings grew louder. Every memory they buried somehow found its way back to the surface. Every attempt to forget only reminded them of what they had truly lost, until one unforgettable moment changed everything. It did not happen during a dramatic conversation. It was not caused by some grand event that everyone noticed. It happened in complete silence. A familiar place. A passing stranger. A simple melody playing in the background. Suddenly, something inside them stopped resisting. They realized they had spent more energy running from love than they ever would have spent protecting it. In that quiet moment, their heart spoke with a clarity it had never known before, but the decision they made carried consequences they never expected. At the very same time, something strange was happening inside you. Maybe you found yourself waking up in the middle of the night without knowing why. Maybe certain dreams felt more vivid than ever before. Maybe someone's name crossed your mind for no reason at all. You dismissed those moments as random, but your soul rarely speaks through logic. It speaks through feelings, symbols, and quiet nudges that make no sense until much later. Those invisible signals have been leading you toward this exact moment. Though one final piece is still missing, there comes a time when every heart must answer a question it has avoided for too long. Is fear stronger than love? Is pride more important than peace? Is safety worth the cost of living with regret? Your soulmate reached that question and discovered something they never expected. The future they imagined without you suddenly looked empty. Every goal they chased felt incomplete. Every victory lost its meaning because the one person they secretly wanted beside them was no longer there. That realization became impossible to ignore, and once it arrived, everything inside them began changing. You may wonder why this transformation took so long. The answer is simpler than you think. Some lessons cannot be rushed. Hearts grow at different speeds than calendars. Life sometimes delays two people, not because they are wrong for each other, but because they are still becoming the people they were always meant to be. Every disappointment shaped you. Every setback strengthened you. Every lonely night quietly prepared you for a version of yourself that could finally receive the love you once begged for. Without realizing it, you became someone entirely different, and that change reached farther. Then you can imagine, your soulmate noticed that transformation even before you did. They saw a strength replacing your old uncertainty. They sensed a peace growing where fear once lived. The person they remembered had evolved into someone who no longer chased validation. You carried yourself differently. Your energy felt different. Even from a distance, they could feel that something inside you had awakened. That quiet confidence became impossible to overlook, and it forced them to confront the truth they had spent so long avoiding. Still, making a decision inside your heart is not the same as acting on it. Every step toward love requires courage, and courage is rarely born without struggle. They questioned themselves over and over again. What if too much time had passed? What if you had already moved on? What if the silence had caused wounds that could never heal? Those questions echoed through every quiet evening, yet no answer brought peace. Only one thought continued returning, stronger each time. They needed to stop wondering and finally face the truth, even if it meant risking everything. Meanwhile, life kept sending signs you almost ignored. Certain numbers appeared again and again. Familiar songs found you when you least expected them. Meaningful conversations seemed to happen at exactly the right moment. Places connected to old memories suddenly crossed your path. None of these moments demanded your attention, yet together they formed a pattern too consistent to dismiss. It was as if the universe was gently reminding you that some stories never truly end until both hearts are ready to hear the same message, and that message was getting louder. The most powerful transformations happen in secret. While the world believed nothing had changed, your soulmate was rewriting the future one quiet decision at a time. They began letting go of old fears. They stopped listening to voices that told them love was weakness. They realized vulnerability was not failure but courage in its purest form. The walls they had spent years building slowly began falling apart. Not because someone forced them down, but because they finally understood they no longer needed them. Yet just as they prepared to move forward, life presented one final test. Every meaningful journey reaches a moment where destiny asks for proof. Not promises. Not wishes. Action. Your soulmate stood before a choice that would define the rest of their life. They could remain trapped inside familiar fear, wondering forever what might have happened. Or they could step into uncertainty, trusting that genuine love is always worth the risk. Their heart had already chosen long before their mind finally agreed. The decision was no longer whether they loved you. The decision was whether they had the courage to let that love become visible. You have been carrying hope and doubt at the same time, haven't you? One part of you wanted to believe something beautiful was still possible. Another part tried to protect you from disappointment by expecting nothing. Those two voices have been living inside you for longer than you realize. But something extraordinary happens when healing becomes stronger than fear. You stop chasing answers because you finally discover peace within yourself. Ironically, that is often the exact moment life begins bringing answers toward you, and yours may already be closer than you think. There is something else you have not fully understood. This story has never been only about romance. It has always been about awakening. The connection between you and your soulmate became the mirror that revealed every hidden fear, every buried dream, every part of yourself waiting to be healed. The delays were not punishment. The distance was not abandonment. Every obstacle quietly transformed both of you into stronger, wiser, more compassionate versions of yourselves. Only now can you begin to understand why nothing unfolded the way you expected, because another revelation has been waiting patiently behind it all. Your soulmate has finally made the life-changing decision they once believed they could never make. They have chosen honesty over fear. They have chosen hope over regret. They have chosen to stop running from the truth their heart has carried all along. But what neither of you realizes is that this decision has already set something much larger into motion. Doors that seemed permanently closed are beginning to open. Unexpected encounters are quietly arranging themselves. Conversations that once felt impossible are drawing closer with every passing hour. The future is shifting even now, though its biggest surprise has not arrived yet, and just when you believe you finally understand why everything happened the way it did, another truth begins to emerge from the shadows. A truth that explains every strange feeling, every unexpected delay, every silent goodbye, and every mysterious sign that followed you through the darkest moments of your journey. The decision your soulmate made was never the final destination. It was only the first step toward a revelation so profound, so deeply personal, and so impossible to ignore that when it finally reaches you, the next heartbeat could become the moment that changes your entire life forever. you were not meant to find these words by accident. Out of everything you could be doing right now, something invisible guided you here, something that has been trying to reach your heart long before this moment arrived. You may not understand why your chest has felt heavier lately, why certain memories refuse to leave you alone, or why an unexplainable feeling keeps whispering that something important is about to happen. That feeling is not here to confuse you. It is here to prepare you. Because somewhere, beyond everything you can currently see, a decision has finally been made. A decision that has the power to change not only another person's future, but yours as well, and the first sign has already appeared without you realizing it. For so long, you believed the silence meant the story was over. Every unanswered message, every delayed conversation, every opportunity that slipped away felt like another chapter closing. You tried to convince yourself that moving on was the only choice left. You smiled when you had to. You kept walking even when your heart wanted to stop and look back one more time. Yet no matter how hard you tried, one invisible connection refused to disappear. It stayed with you in quiet mornings, restless nights, and unexpected moments when their name entered your mind without warning. You wondered why you couldn't let go, never realizing that somewhere else, they were asking themselves the exact same question. The truth is, hearts rarely change in a single dramatic moment. They change in silence. They change after countless sleepless nights, after replaying old conversations, after wondering what life would have looked like if one different choice had been made. While you thought nothing was happening, they were carrying a battle that nobody else could see. Every excuse they created slowly lost its strength. Every reason they gave themselves for staying away began falling apart. They tried to believe the distance was permanent, but every attempt only brought your memory closer, until one ordinary moment suddenly became impossible to ignore. It wasn't a grand miracle that awakened them. It wasn't a perfect coincidence or a magical event. It was something so simple that they almost overlooked it. A familiar song playing at the wrong time. A place that unexpectedly reminded them of your laughter. A stranger whose smile carried a reflection of something they thought they had forgotten forever. Life has a mysterious way of speaking through ordinary moments. And those moments became impossible to dismiss. One by one, they formed a picture that pointed toward the same undeniable truth, and that truth refused to stay hidden any longer. While all of this was unfolding, something inside you was changing too. You became stronger without announcing it. You stopped chasing people who could not meet you where you stood. You slowly learned that your value was never determined by someone else's uncertainty. Every disappointment became another lesson. Every lonely season quietly built a version of you that no longer begged for love but simply became ready to receive it. You didn't notice the transformation because it happened little by little. Yet someone else noticed it long before you did. The energy you carry now is different. Even if you cannot explain it, you have started walking with a quiet confidence that wasn't there before. The sadness that once controlled every decision has slowly loosened its grip. You still remember the pain, but it no longer owns you. That inner shift has created something powerful, because when your soul changes, the people connected to your journey begin feeling the difference, even from a distance. They may not understand why they suddenly think about you more often, but your growth has become impossible for them to ignore, and it awakened something they thought had disappeared forever. They reached a moment where pretending became harder than telling themselves the truth. Every path they imagined without you felt incomplete. Every future they tried to build left an empty space they could no longer explain away. They realized they had mistaken fear for wisdom. They believed protecting themselves meant walking away, but all they really protected was their loneliness. The walls they spent so much time building suddenly felt like prisons instead of safety. And standing inside those walls, they finally asked themselves the question they had avoided for far too long: what if walking away had been the greatest mistake of their life? That question changed everything.